Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Human versus Machine, Who Should You Rely on for Process Safety Management, presented by Dr. Jessica Morris. Dr. Morris is the BakerRisk Manager of Software Development with over a decade of experience in process safety. She has given multiple presentations on AI and an invited panelist for the 2025 Global Conference on Process Safety and Big Data with a focus on AI and process safety software. During this webinar, BakerRisk consultant Dr. Morris will deliver insights into AI and process safety and help identify which elements do AI versus humans perform better. Now, I want to go over a few housekeeping items. Please type questions into the Q&A box in the Zoom control panel, and our technical staff will respond to the questions. Thank you, Murtaza Gandhi, for being here with us to answer those questions today. Finally, at the close of our webinar, please provide feedback by responding to our survey. So without further ado, I will turn the time over to our presenter, Dr. Jessica Morris.
Yeah, thank you, Naomi, for the warm welcome. So I am Jessica Morris. I am the manager here of software development at BakerRisk. Today's presentation is going to be focusing on AI and process safety management. The ultimate goal that we're trying to answer is, who should you be relying on process safety management, humans or machines? And so you will be seeing the results of that in the presentation at the end. What I would like to do before we get into the meat of the presentation is real quick introduce BakerRisk as well as myself, have an introduction to AI to make sure that we're all in the same playing field, understanding the elements of PSM. Here we'll be walking through each of the elements of PSM and how AI is applied to each of these areas, and then the summary of who should you rely on, AI or humans. To introduce BakerRisk, we are Better Risk Management. It starts here. We manage hazards and risks for different facilities. Our primary area is consulting, and so we have consulting services in process safety, in structures, in blast, as well as incident investigations. We also have software and products to support our consultants in producing high-quality work products. We do testing. We have 2 different test sites outside of San Antonio where we do a lot of research and development, and we're proud to be sharing knowledge in industry. We do this through webinars, through conferences, as well as publications. So we appreciate you all joining us today where we can share knowledge on AI and process safety. BakerRisk has been around for over 40 years. We have over 200 employees, 135 of those are consultants, and we are employee-owned. A quick introduction of myself. So my name is Jessica Morris. My degrees are all in chemical engineering. I've been working in the field of process safety for over a decade. Here at BakerRisk, I am the manager of software development as well as a senior consultant. So I do have experience in process safety as well as in software. Right now, we have about 30 different software solutions and different tools, and you can see the logos of some of them down below if you are familiar with any of these tools. And many of our software does include AI, and we'll be talking about that in the presentation today. The next step is setting the stage for AI to make sure that we're all on the same page on how I'm going to be referring to AI. Of course, I'll be giving examples during each of the elements, but I would like to classify AI at the beginning into 4 main groups. The first one is using AI as a data analyst. This is where you are connecting AI to your DCS historians or other large data sets, and you're going to be using AI to provide insights and analyzing that data. And so this is one area where you can have AI as a key application in process safety as a data analyst. The next one is using AI as a soundboard. Most of you guys are familiar with this. If, for example, you go into Google and ask for recipes on, what should I be making for dinner that's high in protein, I can get a recipe using AI. If I can then change the responses saying, hey, I want dinner, but I would like you to change out to a different protein, it will then give you a different response. So you can use AI as a sounding board, kind of like having a conversation with someone, giving it feedback and getting different answers. So AI can also be used as a sounding board. The third area is using AI as a translator or interpreter. This can be done multiple different ways. You can be using AI to do voice to text using your phone, or you can also be using AI, for example, in this webinar, generating a transcript to be more inclusive. You could also be using AI to translate large standards or documents to summarize them. So there's lots of ways that AI can be used as a translator or interpreting documents and summarizing them for you. The fourth way is using AI as a record keeper. This can be used for document generation. It can be used, as before, for meetings. It can be used in a lot of different ways to help you with your documentation and keeping records. So these are the 4 areas that I'm going to be focusing on for key areas, key applications of AI and process safety. My ultimate disclaimer is that AI is always going to be needing human interaction. And so AI is going to be needing humans for making those final decisions and verification. We'll go into that in each of the elements. You also need to make sure that you're following your company's compliance and rules. You should not be connecting AI to your DCS historians or uploading sensitive documents if you've been signing NDAs. You want to make sure that you are appropriately following all the rules and compliance of your company. If you are choosing to go down the route of using AI, you want to make sure you're doing it safely. And the last thing is training. You want to make sure that the people that you are having using AI are effectively using it, that they're able to spot hallucinations and appropriately apply AI in a safe manner. Real quick on hallucinations, this is something that many of you probably have seen with generative AI. It will, for example, provide a summary, and that summary may be hallucinating what section it's coming from, or it'll be hallucinating some of the references. So you need to make sure that even if you are using AI, that you're checking it, verifying that it's correct, that you're able to spot for hallucinations, and you're not providing incorrect data. That's a great way to be increasing risk, and that's not what we want to be doing with process safety management. My other disclaimer is that AI is ever changing. So while these are my opinions as of today on October 28th, 2025, AI can be changing in the future. And there may be new applications where can have a very large impact on the different elements of PSM. So the opinions are subject to change, but I appreciate you all attending in today and hearing my opinions on AI and process safety management. So now we're going to be getting into the meat of the presentation on each of the different elements of PSM and how AI is being applied. So if you have a threshold quantity of hazardous chemical on your site, in the US, we have 29 CFR 1910.119. And this is required by OSHA, saying that you have to have a process safety management program if you have a threshold quantity of hazardous chemicals on your site. And the goal of this program is to identify, evaluate, and control hazards. We want to make sure that we're keeping not only the people on site safe, but also our neighbors and surrounding areas safe. Here at BakerRisk, we do risk management. And so we're going to actually be following the risk-based approach to process safety management. So you can see here on the diagram, we have the CCPS process safety management pillars and elements. This is the risk-based process safety management approach. And this goes above and beyond the compliance, making sure that you're understanding, managing, and learning from risks. So it is a bit more rigorous, but it's an area that we like to focus on because it goes beyond compliance to help us learn from our risks and better manage them. So what I'm going to be doing now is walking through each of the elements in order of where I think AI can have the largest impact in process safety management. My disclaimer is that I'm not going to be endorsing specific companies. If you're interested, you can reach out. I can share some of those names, but I'm trying to speak generally about how AI can be applied. So I'm not trying to endorse other companies on different AI, but you can definitely Google them and learn which companies have these technologies applied. So the first element where AI can have a big impact is through measurements and metrics. So the measurements and metrics element is making sure that you are having performance and efficiency indicators that are being monitored to understand the real-time effectiveness of the risk-based process safety management system. And so this right here is, for example, measuring your KPIs. This is measuring your temperatures, your pressures, your flow rates, all of the different indicators that can tell you how the performance is going. And so this is the first area that AI can really shine. AI, if connected to your DCS historian, can do a great job of analyzing data It can also help identify near misses and predict trends. When I was more involved in incident investigations, there were many times where companies would provide us their data from their historians, and we'd be able to look at a single piece of equipment and identify where did those upset conditions occur. And if you have, 1,000 pieces of equipment at your facility, it's going to be really difficult to notice some of those trends. But AI can do a great job of analyzing the data. It can help you identify near misses with machine learning. It can also help you predict trends to understand where is the efficiency going? Are all the KPIs within the operating envelope? Is it within the safety envelope? How is it operating? And so measurements and metrics with their KPIs is a great area where AI can really assist and provide value. My disclaimer here is that you can't have a single person looking at thousands of data streams and making sense of it. That's information overload. AI can. But what we also don't want to do is set up AI where it has the ability to start changing those set points. And so, for example, if we have a heat exchanger, when you initially install it, it's going to be operating close to those design specs. But over the years, it's going to be degrading. It might not be operating as effectively, just due to wear and tear. And so it's going to slowly start, the change in temperature might slowly start to decrease. And what we don't want is AI to be changing those set points. We still want to be keeping those operational envelope and safety envelope to keep our facility safe. AI can also be great for record keeping and documentation of these KPIs and how they're changing. So in summary, for AI with the measurements and metrics element, AI can do a better job of data analysts just due to the sheer quantity of data than most humans, but it requires systems in place so we're not inadvertently changing different safety envelopes and making sure that there's human verification. That's our first element where AI is having a large impact. Going hand in hand with that is the asset integrity and reliability element. This one is making sure that all of the equipment is appropriately designed, installed, and remaining fit for use until it is no longer in service. And so here is a lot of inspections, tests, and preventative maintenance, ITPM. Here is another area, as before, where AI can do really well as a data analyst. It can help predict the trends and predictions, telling you when should you be doing preventative maintenance? When should you be planning your different activities? And this is actually very cost savings because if you can predict and have preventative maintenance and plan it, it's going to be a lot cheaper instead of having to shut your plan down, trying to order parts and pieces. It's way cheaper to be proactive than it is to be reactive. And so here is another area where you can be using data analysts, using AI to help make your asset integrity and reliability more robust. In addition to using AI as an analyst, it can help with timelines for those preventative maintenance, helping translate, what that would relate to for some of the lead times and when things are being predicted. It can help with training of personnel, taking, translating standards into simpler terms, helping them understand what are the design procedures and installation. It could also be helpful for record keeping with documentation, archiving data. AI here does a really great job as a data analyst as well as documentation, but we still need humans for that verification, making sure that we are not changing things and that we're operating within our limits. The third element where I believe that AI can have a large impact is standardized operating procedures. At a processing facility, you need to ensure that you have written instructions that are listing out all of the tasks as well as the order for those tasks to be performed. There are a lot of great advertisements online for writing out operating procedures. And this is an area where AI can go across many different industries. A lot of companies will have voice to text. You can hold up your phone and speak into your phone and have all of your steps laid out 1 through 100, and it does a great job capturing those. There's other companies that you can actually even do screen sharing with, where it will then capture all of the steps in sequential order. So this is another area where AI is replacing humans because they can write standardized operating procedures. They can capture exactly what you're saying in the appropriate order. The negative about this is that if you're in a large processing facility that's quite loud, it's going to be very difficult to speak into your phone just due to the the decibels of the noise around you. So that's something that can be difficult. The other thing here is that AI does a great job with consistent formatting. And so if you're having operators that are working across different units, different areas, different plants, having a consistent formatting for all of your standardized operating procedures makes the execution of those procedures a lot more effective. If you have a large data source for all of your documentation, it can also make it easier to grab the appropriate documentation for easy access to standardized operating procedures. So in short, for AI with standardized operating procedures, AI is doing a much quicker and easier job of generating SOPs with consistent formatting. But the big step here is making sure that humans are a part of the verification step. If it incorrectly provides the incorrect sequence, that's a great way to increase risk at your facility. And the goal of the risk-based process safety, the risk-based process safety elements are to actually decrease risk and manage your hazards. And so not verifying with humans the appropriate steps is a great way to increase risk. So another area where AI is having a large impact, but we still need humans involved. Another area where AI can have a large impact is in process knowledge management. This element is covering all of the technical documents and specifications, all the engineering drawings and calculations, P&IDs, PFDs, other design, fabrication, and installation specifications, and other written documents. For this area, AI can assist in multiple different ways. AI can be used for design. There are multiple companies out there that are using AI to design pumps, to design pipes, to design flow, to design the different storage vessels, and they're using humans for verification. So this is an area that, for example, if I went to Google and said, hey, Google, and go into their AI and ask them to design me a pump, I could go and do all the engineering calculations and read the curves, or it can do that for me. And all I have to do is verify it. So this is an area that a lot of companies are using AI for design and using those senior engineers for verification, making sure the design is appropriately performed. AI can also be used for verification of knowledge. If you have children, they are doing a great job of incorporating AI into their learning. You can easily take materials that a teacher gives you, upload them to certain websites, and it will generate quizzes for you. And then you can verify your knowledge through a generated quiz online. So it's another way that AI can be used to help generate quizzes and verify your knowledge. You can also use AI as a translator or interpreter. Here is where you can extract relevant information. And so, for example, there is some AI that can be used to, for example, read certain pieces of equipment off of P&ID. So instead of having a person have to use their eyes and try to interpret a document, you can feed it into image recognition for AI, and it can tell you exactly what's going on. One of the concerns here is that if you're using AI for example, translating standards or technical documents, is the concern with generative AI. Generative AI is using a large language learning model, and what it's doing there is that sometimes it can result in hallucinations. And so we've seen this a few different times. If you're asking it to summarize a standard, it can do an okay job of, what is the standard for? Is it relevant for my facility? Is it not relevant for my facility? But if you start asking specifications of what section is this in, that's where things start to get a little bit funky, and making sure that you have the appropriate training on AI to understand, is that a hallucination or is this summarizing the standard, requires that human knowledge. So AI can be working as a translator interpreter for summarizing certain technical documentation. It can also be used for different standards. You can also be using it to help translate information at the appropriate level. So many engineers nowadays will use AI to help simplify some of those complex engineering topics and help them understand it at a more simplified term. AI does a great job of that. And so this is another area we're trying to get people to understand some of those engineering topics. AI can be useful to help explain it in a different way. The last way AI can be applied to process knowledge management is through record keeping, making sure that we have the appropriate documentation of the workforce involvement, making sure that they're trained appropriately and have easy access to documentation in a secure storage location. So for here, AI in the element of process knowledge management, it can help write technical documents, it can help extract information, it can even do some of your design work. But humans are still going to be required for verification, making sure that it is appropriately performed and we're not adding hallucinations. Also, humans are used for management, making sure that all the programs, peoples, and decisions are appropriately managed. Another area that I'm going to spend a couple minutes on for AI is hazard identification and risk analysis. This one is my first element that is under the medium or high level. So all the previous elements that we've discussed have a high impact of AI. This is the first one that can be medium or high. And the reason why is because it depends on what type of hazard analysis are you performing. And so the HIRA element is encompassing all activities, making sure that you're identifying, what is your hazard, what can go wrong, making sure you're understanding the consequences, how bad can it be if that thing were to go wrong, and then what's the probability of it happening? How often can that occur? And so this is something that we're making sure that you're identifying the hazards at your facility throughout the entire life cycle of the facility, and it's within the organization's risk tolerance. Here, AI can be used as an analyst, and it could also be used as a record keeper. The big concern here as an analyst is that generative AI, if, for example, I say I would like AI to figure out what I'm eating for dinner, and I say, you know what, I don't like that protein choice. Can you give me something else? It will give me another option. Or in this case, if I say, okay, tell me what the hazards are at my facility. Ooh, I don't like that risk. Can you give me another option? It'll give you another value. And so for here, generative AI is something that we are staying away from. We want to make sure that all of the hazards that we are analyzing are repeatable, that we can reproduce the same exact hazards every single time. And so when we are looking at AI for the hazard identification and risk assessments, we are looking at AI that is reproducible and defendable. So we're getting the same answer every single time. And so my next slide is actually going to go into different types for hazard identification. And we're going to talk about how AI is being applied to all those different areas. The first one is process hazard analysis. This is an area that I think has a lot going on in the field of AI due to image recognition. And so there's a lot of research going on where you can actually take a PNID, feed it into a system. It will then do image recognition, and it will actually tell you all of your potential causes and consequences for a HAZOP. That is way quicker than any human can do. So it's very impressive to see that that AI has the ability for image recognition to start generating those causes and consequences. Do I think it's going to be fully replacing humans? Probably not at this moment, because while it can do a great job of identifying causes and consequences, and we're also looking at implementing, data like this in our software, you still need to have those very senior subject matter experts that can walk through all the potential safeguards, all the potential recommendations, and making sure that your process hazard analysis is correct for your site. One way that we are adding AI into our Ph.D. tool, which is for process hazard analysis, is actually through our dust hazard analysis. If you have a dust hazard, we're following the fire pentagon, but we are actually helping you by pre-generating a lot of the potential ignition sources, potential safeguards, potential recommendations based on the piece of equipment that you're selecting to provide very comprehensive recommendations and safeguards and making sure we're doing a full analysis. And this is something that we can do by capturing a lot of our subject matter experts' knowledge into our software. We also use AI or XAI specifically in our quantitative risk assessments. And so here we've done a couple things. We've incorporated different standards. So instead of having to interpret those standards, we've already done that for you. We have different subject matter experts that have been able to interpret those standards for very easy access to software and those interpretations. We also have many quality control checks for decreased errors and higher quality of work. And so we've already been implementing those control checks as well as standards into our software to provide very comprehensive results during these types of hazard assessments. Equipment integrity, inspections, and performance testing, we've already covered in a previous element. AI can do a great job with data analytics and helping predict those trends. Incident investigations is my next slide, so I'm going to cover that in the next slide, so I am going to skip it here. Fire hazard and mitigation analysis. This is an area just to understand that the hazards are able to be appropriately controlled with your fire water systems. And so we use software to FireHat for the design. We also then can use it in conjunction for a verification of those design standards, and we can do specialized testing. And this is a way that you're taking your hazard analysis to the next level. Hazardous area classification is an area where we've again added different standards for a more streamlined analysis. We also have the ability to make things scenario-based instead of heuristic-based for decreased costs. Another area where you can be adding in XAI for different standards to make everything in compliant, depending on the area that you're in. For fire and gas detector placement, we do have software for that, where it is more scenario-based as compared to heuristic placements. There's also a lot of really great AI used for CCTV. They have image detection where they're using different lasers to detect where flammable release is happening at a facility. So instead of having to wait for your flammable release to reach a gas detector, you can actually physically see it and get the notification there, and you can help prevent these hazards from escalating. The last area for hazards is cybersecurity. This is an area that's definitely been increased in the past and can be a whole webinar on its own. For this one, AI can be used very negatively to hurt you for cybersecurity. It could also be used very positive to help keep you safe. So I'm not going to go too much into that detail, but there's a lot of great publications and even books recently on cybersecurity, but it's a very real hazard to take into consideration, even though it's not a direct element. So now the next few elements I'm classifying as medium impact due to AI. And the reason why they're listed as medium impact is due to some of the costs or effort to implement AI. So while these elements do not require AI, they can benefit, but it does come at a cost. So for this element, it is incident investigations. This is requiring a formal process for investigating incidents, making sure it's done timely and objectively with no bias, making sure that you're managing the resolutions and documentation, identifying what was the root cause and how do we prevent that from happening in the future. Here, AI can be applied across multiple different areas. It can be used as a sounding board. So if you're trying to figure out what happened, we don't understand, how did this happen at our facility? You can be using it as a sounding board to help you identify what are those credible scenarios. My disclaimer here is you don't want to be removing your senior personnel. They're the ones who know your facility best, or you also don't want to be removing those incident investigators because they have that experience to help you identify these. And so you can use it as a sounding board, but please do not remove people for this area. You could also be using AI as an analyst. It can help with scene documentation, making sure that everything is appropriately labeled, standardized, documented. It could also be used in data analysis. There's a lot of really great LiDAR scanners like Matterport for helping with scene documentation. You can use it to help model scenarios. I know that when I've been involved in investigations, I will use different software to model hazards, trying to recreate the accident, but I don't know what's going on at that processing facility. So I'll use AI to help me understand what are some normal operating conditions for different streams, or what are the different chemicals that can be seen to help me then recreate and reconstruct what happened. You could also be using AI as a translator. And so for here, we have a software called CatTree, which is our root cause analysis software. And what it will do is actually translate the root cause into action items. And so, for example, if your root cause was a direct impact due to human factors, it will give you suggestions on how you can mitigate that event from happening in the future. And so AI can be used as a translator to help you stay safe after an incident can occur. AI can also be used for record keeping, making sure that you have a very thorough analysis. It can help with checklists, making sure that you're not missing any potential causes, and help with easy access to documentation if it is all securely stored in a central location. So for here, for AI and incident investigations, humans are needed to lead the activity, but they can be aided by AI. The next element is training and performance. This element is about training the workers, making sure that they are able to reliably perform the tasks that are needed. Some people need to be meeting certain standards to maintain their proficiency. This is another element that AI can assist with analysts. They can help with training. There's multiple companies out there that will do a full scan of your facility, create a 3D virtual reality of your facility, and then they will allow you to have your workers trained performing tasks using virtual reality as compared to actually going out into the field and turning valves. This is a great way to ensure that people are performing at an appropriate level prior to going out into the field and making changes. There's multiple companies that do that to assist with training. And one of the other things that they do, in addition to being proficient in your standardized operating procedures, is they will also help you in an emergency response, making sure that you are trained appropriately in an emergency. So if there was a step that went wrong while you're performing the standardized operating procedures, they will help you walk through a scenario and understand how do you respond in the appropriate scenario. And so this is a great way that AI can assist with a heightened level of training. It is costly, but it is a great way for increased training. You can also be using AI for that verification of competency. So this is going into those, pre-generated quizzes, using the material that you submit to it. It's a great way to verify that people are competent. You can also be using AI to help analyze trends in the personnel's performance. This is a way that you can see, are people getting worse over time? Are they getting better over time? Is a certain shift performing more errors? And so it's a great way to make sure that people are performing consistently and can provide those insights using AI as an analyst. AI can also be used as a translator or interpreter, making sure that you can, for example, help train by translating the standards into simpler terms. Does every single person need to be reading, a 100-page standard? Maybe not, depending on what level that they're at. And so AI can do a great job of summarizing standards. It can also do a great job of sharing information in a more digestible manner. So maybe you have operators on site and they may not have, there may be quite a while since they've had a fluid dynamics class, or they may not have as much experience in that area. And so using AI to help them understand those different areas is a great way that you can use AI for training and performance. The last one for AI in this area is record keeping. It can be used for keeping documentation, having standardized formats, archiving data, and making sure that there's easy access to that documentation. So in summary, for AI with the element of training and performance, AI can be used. There's a lot of really great and new technology for training with AI. And also documents and evaluations can be aided with AI, but you still need people. Another element where AI can have an impact is through auditing. The auditing element is evaluating whether or not the systems are performing as intended. And so AI can be used to, for example, get access to a lot of information. So if you are uploading your documents in a controlled environment that has access to a GPT, it can help identify where documents exist that may help fulfill those audits. So are there programs in place for, are there standardized operating procedures? Are there management and change programs? Are there documenting competency? These are things where you can use AI to help assist you with your audit. It also makes it a lot easier, especially for record keeping, having easy access to documentation and document the findings and action items from those audits. So for this one, AI really can assist as long as it's done in a secure manner, but it does require humans for that final interpretation. Just because a document is in place doesn't mean that people are following it, and you'll see that in the next couple elements. Another element where AI can have a big impact is through safe work practices. This element is in place to kind of fill the gaps between standardized operating procedures and maintenance. It's used to help control the hazards and manage the risk with non-routine work. And so this is, for example, if we were to do welding on a pipe, that may not be a routine activity. And so this is where, for example, you'd have a hot work permit. And if you were to have a hot work permit, you're going to be doing you're going to be going through whoever that supervisor is for that day and making sure that they're walking the line. They're making sure there's no, flammable material. There's no potential ignition sources. And so this is where AI can assist with certain things. So for example, if we have a hot work permit, there's a lot of companies that have CCTV. If you have like one of those fancy doorbells, you can set it to do image recognition saying, notify me when a person comes to my front door, or you can say, notify me when any animal runs by the front door, but there is the ability to do image recognition. And so for some of these facilities, if you have an area that is classified or has a hot work permit where there shouldn't be people, using CCTV with image recognition is a great way to help keep people safe. The supervisor may not know that contractors are located there, but TV will catch them and be able to notify, hey, maybe there's people in an area they shouldn't be, and we can help manage our hazards and risks with this type of technology. AI can also be used for a complete review of permits. Once all of the permits are fully submitted, you can do a quarterly review, a half-year review, a yearly review to understand what's going on with our permits and how can we improve and how to analyze that data in the most effective way, but still using humans to help provide insights. AI can be used for helping with filling out those permits, using them for procedures, permits, checklists to help fill out the information. There's a lot of great programs out there. For example, TurboTax. I'm not a tax expert, but I can use TurboTax to do my taxes. And if I have any sort of question, I can hover my mouse over the area and it will give me good information. So this is another area where you can use AI to help fill out permits, procedures, checklists, and provide a more comprehensive form to better understand and control those hazards. So for safe work practices, this element can be used. Humans play a large role in this. I'm not trying to get rid of humans. They need to be, walking down the lines, making sure that there's no hazards, making sure no new hazards have appeared. But AI can definitely be used for record keeping, reviews, or new technology like CCTV with image recognition. I'm now going to move to the elements that I think have a lower impact of AI just at the moment. Technology can change, so I could be wrong. There could be new technology that's come out since making this presentation, and there could be new areas where you can have AI helping. So if that is the case, please let me know. I'm always interested to learn more. But compliance with standards is an area that AI is having a lower impact. This element requires your ability to identify, develop, acquire, evaluate, disseminate, provide access to standards, codes, regulations, and laws. So AI can be used to help translate different standards into simpler terms. So for example, if I wanted to open up a lemonade stand here in Illinois, I can go on Google and say, what kind of standards do I have to follow to open up a lemonade stand? And it will tell me different health codes, different regulations, different laws to help me figure out what I need. But then it's up to the human to do a deep dive into those documents. So it is up to the humans to make sure we're verifying and doing that full deep level. But AI can be great for getting a head start of where should I be looking? Can it help me summarize standards in a simpler term or give me an overview and help me know, is this applicable to me or not for my facility? It could also be used for record keeping. It does a great job of, if you easy access to documentation, making sure that we're following what we're required to follow and comply with. And so for this one, AI can assist with the identification, high-level summaries, and documentation, but it's ultimately up to the humans to make sure that we're verifying those. We're making sure that we're not seeing any sort of hallucinations, which we've seen frequently with summarizing different standards. It'll make up sections. Humans need to be ultimately interpreting those. One of the great examples that I love for compliance with standards is a project that we actually did for a fire safety analysis for the propane Education and Research Council. We actually created essentially a TurboTax for propane. And if you need to, essentially what you do is you are going to be filling out all the different questions. It's just going to ask you questions about, what year is your facility? what type of equipment do you have, tell us what your storage tank looks like, and it will actually do the full hazard analysis and make sure that you're in compliant with all the different standards, as well as contact the local fire department and provide everything in a nice report. And so you can use different software and AI to make sure that you are in compliance with standards. So this is just one example for that, but there is a large cost upfront to implement this type of work. But once it's in place, really helpful and useful, great time saver. Another element that has a lower impact would be contractor management. This element is making sure that contract workers are performing their jobs safely and that they're not adding or increasing risk. And so here you can be using AI for verification of competency, making sure that they understand the material and that they're confident at the procedures that they're supposed to be performing. You can be using AI if you are working with contracts on that side. You can be using AI for summary of those legal checks within those contracts. They can also be used to train the appropriate personnel. So AI can be used to help translate standards into simpler terms, to help share information in a more digestible manner for all different levels. It could also be used for record keeping, making sure that the contractors have the appropriate qualifications on site, as well as documentation. So for this element, management does require the human aspect, but AI can make that a lot easier for you. I feel very strongly about management of change. Management of change is making sure that any sort of changes that you're performing at your facility is not inadvertently introducing new hazards or unknowingly increasing risk. And so, for example, if I wanted to swap out piping, if I swap it out with a different material, that could introduce a hazard if it's not compatible with the chemical. I could be swapping out piping with a larger pipe size, which is now going to have a decreased pressure, which can have an effect on the process. Management of change can drastically increase your risk at a facility, and it's not on purpose. People are inadvertently doing this. And so here I do have concerns about adding AI. I think that you can use AI as a sounding board for potential brainstorming, but I strongly do not recommend removing people. Making sure that you have the appropriate people that are knowledgeable at your facility is very important for management of change. The one thing that AI can provide value on is appropriate documentation. So AI can be used for providing checklists or templates to make sure that we're not overlooking any potential hazards. So for AI and management of change, I think that the appropriate personnel should always be involved, but you can use AI to help assist. I'm now getting into the elements that don't have as much impact with AI just due to the human aspect. So I'm going to kind of go through these a bit quicker. So for example, stakeholder outreach, this is making sure that you are identifying the appropriate groups, you're establishing relationships and providing appropriate information. So for example, if I had a processing facility, it was on the water, I'm right next to a town, making sure that the people in the water are aware of what's going on, making sure the people in the town are aware of what's going on are important because those are considered stakeholders. You could also have different regulatory agencies. Other groups can also be considered stakeholders. For this one, there's a lot of interpersonal skills and communication that is required by humans, but you can use AI to help you with that communication. So for example, using AI as a sounding board is a great way to understand, okay, I have a facility next to the water. What does that mean for my facility? How does that impact, is anything I'm doing, can that impact water? I don't know. You can ask it and find out more information. You can use it as a sounding board to see what information affects others. You can also use it to help present information. You can be using AI as a translator or interpreter. AI does a great job of translating things into simpler information. So for example, taking all those complex engineering topics and sharing them at a level that's appropriate to the public, helping them understand the hazards, not just using engineering words, but helping them really understand the hazards. You can also use AI for insights from surveys or reviews or emails. Maybe you're getting a lot of emails from different stakeholders, and you can use AI to help better understand what's the overall theme. Are they happy? Are they mad? Where are we having concerns? And it can help provide insights from those. You could also use AI for record keeping, making sure that you have the appropriate key stakeholders, timelines, making sure you have appropriate access to documentation, and sharing information at the appropriate level. So for here, AI with stakeholder outreach, this one's really difficult because it requires a lot of interpersonal skills and superior communication, but AI can assist you with that communication. Process safety competency is the element that requires improving knowledge and competency, making sure that appropriate information is available, and making sure that people are applying it in the appropriate manner. This is more people management. AI can be used to help analyze that people are competent with those AI generated quizzes. You can help review documents. You can help share information in a more digestible manner, as well as use AI for documentation or an easy access to documentation. This is where AI can assist with programs, but it really requires us humans to make sure that people are fit for purpose, they are competent at what they're doing, that we're documenting things appropriately, and if they're not performing, how to help get them up to the appropriate level. Emergency management is an element that requires a lot of planning for emergencies, making sure you have resources to execute the plan. You are doing drills to practice and improve the plan, making sure everyone is trained and informed. Looking at that stakeholder outreach, making sure the people around your facility also know what to do, like local authorities and neighbors, and appropriate communication. AI can be used as a sounding board, making sure that you have all the potential incredible scenarios, making sure that you are able to train people and that they understand the hazards at the appropriate level. Can also be used for record keeping for the emergency response plan, making sure everyone can easily access that information and that you are drilling on all the scenarios. So that way, if there was a scenario at your facility, you've had practice and you know what to do. So for here, this also very much requires humans, but can be aided with AI. Process safety culture is a really difficult one for AI to impact because culture is dependent on the people. It is the beliefs, language, customs, rituals, behaviors, faith, food, music, attitudes. There's a lot going on. At a processing facility, it's how we do things around here or what we expect around here and how we behave when no one's watching. That is very difficult to implement with AI. I think that if you're in a leadership position, you can use AI as a sounding board to help better understand what can we do. You can also be using it to provide better insights to other cultures. So for example, if I'm trying to figure out why do X amount of people disappear for 2 hours on a random Friday, I can look into AI to better understand what's going on and how can I be sensitive to better incorporate that into our company's culture. So for this one, it's very impossible to change without human interaction. Humans are impacting the culture at your office, at your facility, at your company. You only have a couple elements left. Again, these are not as impactful with AI. So workforce involvement, making sure there's active participation during the design, development, implementation. AI can be used to help provide insights of surveys and reviews and can be used for record keeping to make sure the appropriate personnel are involved. But management and culture influence this element a lot more than AI can. Conduct of operations is, closely tied to an organization's culture. It's how the operational and management tasks are actually executed. You can use AI to help analyze the performance evaluations and help with communication between the shifts, workers, and groups, but requires human for the verification. Humans are directly involved in the culture. And we have about 2 left. Operational readiness. This is another one where, addressing startups for any sort of shutdowns. You can have AI assist with record keeping, like checklists or documentation, but pre-startup safety review should always have a person walking the line to better understand what's going on. AI can be used to assist, but you don't want to be removing those people in such a critical task. The last one is management review and continuous improvement. This is evaluating whether or not your systems are performing. AI can be used for record keeping. It can potentially be used for analyzing surveys, but in reality, this is where humans are required for management, leadership, and complex thoughts. So in summary, the overarching theme of this webinar was who should you be relying on for process safety management, humans or machine? We've covered some of the key applications of AI and process safety management, specifically going down each of the elements, looking at AI from a perspective of an analyst, sounding board, translator, interpreter, and record keeping. My overall disclaimer is you still need to have human interaction for those final decisions and verification, making sure that you're following your company's policies for appropriate data sharing, and making sure that you have someone who's effectively trained in AI so that they're able to spot hallucinations and use it more effectively. So last 3 slides, there are pros and cons of having humans. So humans, I think, are really great when it requires critical thinking. They can acquire meaningful information. They can make judgments. They can react to new situations. They can improvise, and they can learn from their experiences. Where humans are not great is they can be inconsistent. They do make errors for repetitive tasks. They will perform shortcuts. They can have slow responses. Maybe they didn't get enough sleep last night, where they're a little bit slower. They can also have challenges with memory. If you ask me to do 100 steps in the sequential order, I'm probably not going to be able to do all 100 my first time. They also can have bias with perceived models. So human error increases when there are choices to be made, but they do really well with critical thinking tasks as compared to AI. We've covered a lot of the pros of AI during this presentation. I will real quick touch on some of those disadvantages. AI can be very expensive to implement. So the areas where I've labeled AI as a medium impact, it is primarily due to cost. There's a lot of startup costs to make sure that you are taking data, scrubbing it, making sure it can be used by AI, and then interpret that data in an effective way. AI does require a lot of technical expertise. There's not, a dedicated person at every facility doing AI because it is a newer area. There's a limited number of workers. It can lack creativity, degradation, and maintenance. It still does require maintenance, and there's some ethical problems associated with this. So this is my high-level summary slide of who should you rely on for process safety management, humans or machine. It depends on what element we're looking at. I think that the areas that have a high impact of AI is process knowledge management, standardized operating procedures, metrics and metrics, asset integrity and reliability. These are areas where we're seeing a lot of positive impact from AI in process safety. Hazard identification and risk management, I put medium to high because it depends on the type of hazard analysis that you're performing. We've added a lot of AI into our own software to help produce higher quality of work products. So we're adding it, but other areas we can't add it in. The next 4 areas for medium: incident investigation, auditing, training and performance, and safe work practices. These ones I put as medium just due to cost. There's a lot of really great and promising AI technology out there, but they are a bit costly to implement at your facility, but they do have very positive impacts. The other areas I did put as low. And the reason why is because these are more impacted by humans. And so if you have more of a human interaction with these elements, AI can assist, but it's ultimately up to the human. So in summary, I think that AI can be very beneficial for certain elements of PSM. I think that humans can outperform in other areas. I think that overall, you can have higher quality of work in a decreased amount of time if you're implementing AI correctly, but ultimately you still need humans involved every step of the way. And that concludes my presentation. So now I'm open for questions. And
thank you so much, Jessica. And I'm going to go ahead and ask some of the questions that did come up during the presentation. And just as a reminder to our attendees, if you haven't already done so, be sure to type your questions into the Q&A box in your control panel. So one of the first questions, Jessica, is where should people be investing in AI?
I'm going to go back a slide to answer this question. I think that people should be investing based on what their facility needs. Some facilities, if, for example, they have a lot of process knowledge already generated, they may not need to be using AI. But if a facility is maybe 10 or 20 years behind on updating some of their process safety information, AI can assist with that. Or if you have, let's say you have a company that has incorporated multiple different companies or multiple different facilities, they can help standardize their operating procedures using AI. So I think it depends on what your facility needs. It's going to be really dependent, but I do think that it still is going to fit this organization of high to low. Where can you impact it? But there's a lot of systems in place that need to happen before you can start utilizing AI. And it's going to be really company dependent.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Another one that was asked is, can AI be replacing operators?
That is a good question. And that is all the rage right now. I know on LinkedIn, I saw some posts this morning about AI replacing people. In the field of process safety management, do I think AI can be replacing operators? Right now, no. I think that AI can be assisting operators and helping them make better judgments in some of the information, especially with a large amount of data analysis. AI can really assist with that, but I don't think AI should be replacing operators. I think AI can be assisting. If your position is solely generating standardized operating procedures, then you should probably be concerned potentially if AI is doing a really good job in that area. But right now, I think that you still need humans with the critical thinking skills to be operating facilities. You cannot fully replace with AI. But I know that goes against what other companies are predicting for the future.
Gotcha. Where's BakerRisk adding AI to our software?
Yeah, so BakerRisk is definitely adding AI. My disclaimer for that is we're adding XAI or explainable AI as compared to generative AI, because a lot of the area that we're in is the hazard identification and risk management. And so for here, we're adding quality control checks. We're adding different standards that are being interpreted by our subject matter experts. We're adding in image recognition. We're adding in making sure we're having very comprehensive, dust hazard analysis. We've been adding in a lot of AI by utilizing our subject matter experts for really just high quality work products.
Perfect. And it looks like we've only covered a few of the questions that were asked. And again, thank you to Murtaza for answering some of the other ones that have come in. And again, we have a lot, and we'll be sure to have all of those answered and get those to you. But if you do have any more questions, type those in the Q&A box. So one last question before we conclude the webinar. Where is BakerRisk adding AI to their consulting? I know you spoke on the software, but how about in the consulting realm?
Yeah, so our largest area for consulting is more of that hazard identification. So we're definitely adding it into our software. I think that in other areas of process safety management, we can add AI across the different elements, but it's again going to be really dependent on the facility. So we've added AI in some of our training when we're performing training for different facilities through our BakerRisk Learning Center. We can be using it, but the main thing here is making sure that we're implementing it in a safe manner. We do sign NDAs with our clients. We want to make sure we're not sharing their information. So if we're adding in AI, we need to make sure it's being done securely. But I mean, the presentation today, there's lots of areas where AI can be implemented.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much again, Jessica, for your presentation, and to Murtaza for answering questions in the background. And as a final reminder, today's presentation will be posted to our BakerRisk website. And once the recording and Q&A is available, you'll also receive an email from us with the links to this webinar's content. So lastly, just be sure to complete the survey at the conclusion of the webinar, and we look forward to seeing you all again soon. So thank you for joining us today. Jessica, great job. Appreciate all the information.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
All right. Have a great day.